Farm transition options. We are often asked by aspiring farmers, retiring farmers, investors, what are the options available to me in terms of sharing ownership, in terms of transitioning ownership, in terms of starting off and moving to ensure that that next gen farmer has some form of equity in the business or land. And we got our mate Andrew Bomm from Progressive Ag up in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, to pull this very question apart with us. And he's developed a really nice document, which again, we've copied and pasted here. All this information is free, just gobble it up and get to know it. So we want you to have a quick read through this and get an understanding of the options available to you. I'm going to work through these 6 with you now. I won't go through all the details, just a high level. So please take the time to read the details and do your own Googling. We've struggled to find a consolidated list like this anywhere on the internet, and hopefully it's really valuable for you. So the 6 options we're going to work through are leasing, share farming, lease to buy options, vendor finance, collaborative farming, and lastly, joint venture / equity partnerships. So there's, I guess, before we get into the detail, there's 2 sort of areas for growth with these arrangements, and that's around practical growth from land ownership or profit from managing and operating the farm business. So that's sort of 2 core concepts to think about when looking at any of these options. And we want you to have ownership either in the land or the business, or in both. Either of those, or any combination of those, we think are great. But that core concept of ownership, we think, is the driver for why so many of you are following us and following your dreams, is that you want to have ownership. And these are different ways for you to get various forms of ownership. You just need to know what do you mean by ownership? Is it the land? Is it the business? Is it both? And mix and match these arrangements when you're just getting to know it, or even having discussions with retiring farmers or investors or friends or advisors. So leasing. So leasing is a great opportunity for anyone starting out, but we also know it's probably just as hard to get a lease as it is to buy a farm. Land is very, very hard to get access to. That's why relationships are so key, and you should be out there hunting for those opportunities. But let's say you do get an opportunity and someone's willing to lease. There's a number of different ways of doing it, but usually it's just a flat annual lease based on 5% of the value of the assets. But because farms are getting so expensive, that's probably really unrealistic more and more. So we're encouraging more farmers who are leasing out their land to think a bit more, think differently, I guess. And we're hearing more that people are doing flex lease is one term, where I guess both parties are sharing the risk. You pay a lower base rate, lease rate, but then based on unit prices, the seasonal conditions, etc., the amount goes up and down. So you're not only sharing the risk, but you're also sharing the rewards and making it more viable for the leasee to be able to pay back the lease. If you're just paying a flat rate and the season's terrible, you're probably going to make a loss in that lease, which then you think about what the ramifications for that. Maybe they're not going to be looking after the land as well as they should because money is tight. So that is one. So benefits around that. So opportunity to access land without needing the equity to purchase it, which is a great thing. So you can build your business rather than building the land wealth. You can increase the scale of an existing farm business. You can add a number of leases to your empire. I know Tim and Tegan, our co-founders, have done that many, many times. And some drawbacks is that the poor seasons really knock you about if you just have a flat lease rate. Expectations of return as a proportion of asset value can be unreasonable, as I talked about. Some land, I guess most land value in Australia is very, very high and maybe not reflective of what you can earn off the land. Next is share farming. This is very common in the dairy industry, but don't see why it can't be applied everywhere. These arrangements distribute profits from agricultural production between landowner and farm operator based on who bears the cost of production and risk. So it's similar in some ways to flex lease because both farm operator and landowner share seasonal and price risks that farm businesses face. I like the share farming option. There are some risks to it, so let's go through some of the benefits and risks. So benefits: farm risk share between farm operator and landowner, which I think is a good thing. Opportunity to access land without needing equity to purchase it. I think that is a really good thing. And you can mix and match how the arrangement works. Maybe you can start buying into the land as part of the share farming deal. And you can increase the scale of an existing farm similar to leasing fairly rapidly. Drawbacks: there's potential conflict over who's going to be wearing what costs So that's why we make sure that you've got advisors alongside you setting up these deals and also ongoing to help make sure that's clear, because money pulls apart a lot of relationships. And sometimes it's difficult to reach an agreement on those, on who pays what costs and who gets what profits. And then also the other one is making sure you get the right management strategy, because if there are people bearing disproportionate costs or disproportionate profits and someone managing there as well, it's also a source of disagreement. So again, get your advisors in, not only for this type of arrangement, for any arrangement. Lease to buy options. So negotiating an option for the leasee to buy the land at the end of a lease agreement can be a good way to manage the transition of land ownership between farm businesses that are winding up. So you can set the agreed sale price, say 5-10 years in advance, and you can use that time to build your equity through profit through the lease back to the landowner. So for the landowner, you get a benefit that you know that there's a clear pathway for you to eventually step out of the farm altogether, and you get to know that purchaser and love them probably, and just want to see them succeed. We've got a case study there, but the benefits are you can help manage the land ownership transition between farm businesses, provides incentives for potential new landowners to make a long-term investment in productivity improvements. I think that's a key one as well. If you're vested and you know this is going to be yours, you're going to look after the soil and the land. Existing landowners can manage succession planning more effectively. That's a good one as well. Succession is very tricky. Drawbacks. So owners may be reluctant to commit to selling at a fixed price in the future. And so you're potentially foregoing any market increases in land values, but also alternatively, maybe land prices will go down if ever. So you're sort of mitigating that risk by knowing you're going to get a set return or set increase in value over time. And then also leasees run the risk of improving the land, but running the risk that maybe they don't actually have enough equity at the end. But lease to buy is great because it gives you the option to find those investors to back you. Oh, you come talk to us. If you've got an arrangement with the vendor that it'll be yours in 5 years, that's a great amount of time to get the right people beside you to go and buy it. Vendor finance in some ways similar to lease to buy, but the seller is the one who lends the rest of the money, i.e. they're the bank. So you as the buyer will need to probably pay at a higher rate than if you would at the bank, but that's because it's riskier. But the seller is probably going to be getting a higher return than if they just left the money in the bank, and probably more certainty as well if they're in the share market, and they're getting a return on an asset that they know a lot about. So there can be some benefits to having this. But my understanding is that the mortgage lies with the vendor up until the whole thing has been purchased, but a really great option, and we're encouraging more and more people to think like this. So it allows new entrants to purchase land when debt is unavailable. Usually they chuck in some money at the start to show they are in. Then it provides existing farmers with a return on an asset while they sell, so you can continue to get an income while you're stepping back from your farm. And the purchaser can invest in the land knowing that it's going to be theirs, so they'll put the energy and time and money into it. Drawbacks, the interest rate for you as a borrower will be higher than what you can get at a bank, but probably you can't get debt from the bank. You don't have enough savings. And for the vendor, you've got your assets tied up within a lending agreement for a long period. So if things change for you ongoing, your ability to be flexible is restricted. And the second last is collaborative farming. This is just an arrangement where two or more farming businesses pool resources and skills to improve the scale or efficiency. That, I think, is probably self-explanatory. It's just getting together and working through a deal. There's more details there, but I want to get to the last one, which is joint venture equity partnerships. And then we're promoting these a lot. We know this happens a lot in New Zealand. We think these are really, really cool. This is just where two parties or more own shares in entities. And the common way we're setting these up across the country is an entity owns the land and an entity owns the business. This is how we've set up Freeland Pork, which is our first match with an investor. And that way you're clear that this company that owns the farm owns the business, and then you're an employee, say aspiring farmer. You're the employer that gets paid a wage. It's really clear. Plus you also get a return on investment, given that you're invested in a shareholder. But it's just a bit more formal in that structure. I think it's a good one. So some of the benefits The corporate structure improves governance and accountability, which we're all about. Having that structure and a process in place does make sure everyone's reporting and everyone knows their place. You can easily attract investors to jump into there, and also banks probably are more interested in something like this as well, to show you've got the structure and rigor. And also, business-minded people in a business in more of a formally structured entity. Great way for succession planning. So if you've got entity structures like this, it's relatively easy to bring shareholders in and out. And also it's clear around remuneration, i.e. whenever you work on the farm, you get paid. Just an employee, the company pays you. But also the benefit is you own part of the company and you get a return. So there's drawbacks. So the farm operator probably does have some sacrifices some control over the farm, but you're always accountable to somebody, whether it's the bank or your parents. So you're never always going to have 100% control over your farm anyway. Shareholders may want to exit at any time, and they can, and that's a risk. And again, that's why we focus on relationships.